Today I'd like to use as a subject a little walk through history. I wanted to use the topic, humanity's long walk to freedom, but it almost sounds a little Buji Bantonish, but there is a Nelson Mandela long walk to freedom also, but little walk through history. Ken Ham, the president of the Creation Museum just on the outskirts in Kentucky, just on the outskirts of Cincinnati, the border of Ohio there, and also the founder of the Creation Museum. If you've never been there, it's something that you should look at. It's a $160 million project that was built there just on the in Kentucky, and in it, that's just the ark itself. It's a replica over 500 plus feet long, a replica of Noah's Ark, and the exact measurement according to the cubit in the Bible, using I think the Egyptian measurement of a cubit. He raised that up in Kentucky, and it's an amazing place to go, both that and the Creation Museum. He talked about world history in this way. He said when it comes to world history, there are basically 7 C's. And for many of us, or for today, we look at world history and we would like to take world history and exclude God out of it. But if we're going to truly look at history, we're going to have to look at the architect of time, space, and matter. You cannot deal with the creator of it all and then exclude him from world history. He said there are 7 C's. There is that of creation, corruption, and then after that, there is a catastrophe, and from catastrophe, there is confusion, and from confusion came Christ, and from Christ came the cross, and from the cross, it paved the way for consummation. What does all that mean? I'm going to borrow some of what he has been sharing for quite a while now, many decades. The Bible states that in the beginning, and this is the whole aspect, the first C, creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Paul, looking back, said that Jesus Christ was there as the co-author with God the Father. As a matter of fact, he said here, for by him, referring to Jesus Christ, all things were created. This is in Colossians 1:16 and 17. All things were created that are in heaven and that are on the earth, visible and invisible. Whether there be thrones or dominion or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. The Bible said also that he is before all things, and in him all things consist. When we look at it here, we're not looking at any ordinary run-of-the-mill man, but we're looking at God incarnate. The Bible said, as it relates to creation, on day 1, God created light by saying, let there be light, and there was light. And then God separated the light from the darkness. He called the light itself day, and the darkness he called night, using a light system that was a temporal light system, or that is different from the light system that we have today, the sun and the moon, because those were created later on, day 4. On day 2, God then made the great expanse. That was something that was stretched out like space. And he separated the waters above the expanse from the water below. On day 3, God caused the water under the expanse to come together. so the dry land could appear. And then he told the land to bring forth plants and trees. Day 4, God made the sun. And this was pretty much how it all began, a 6-day period. God made the sun, and then God made the moon, and then God made the stars. It's interesting that plants came before the sun. For people who said that time represent these, long period of time. A day to the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. And so a day could be thousands or millions of years or whatever the case may be, based on God's system of doing things. The Bible said the sun came on day 4 after plants came on day 3. It would be difficult to wait millions of years for you to get sunlight if you're a plant. Day 4, then God made the sun, the moon, and the stars. And these would serve as signs and mark the seasons, the day and the year. The sun and the moon were to rule the day, while the night was supposed to be governed. The sun was supposed to rule the day, while the moon was to govern the night. On day 5, God created all the different animals that would live in the water, an animal that would fly through the air. God created every single one of them. Whatever animal you can think of, God created them. And that includes those of you who are asking, who created, when was the dinosaur created? Well, it was created on day 5. And so, God created every single one of them. On day 6, God then created, that those were the sea animal and the flying creatures in the sky. But on day 6, God created the land animal. So that's when the dinosaurs came. And then he also created us. God said, let us make man in our own image. And then in the image of God, God created them, male man and female man. God created them, male and female. And so man become the species, and the division of man is male man and female man. So technically, woman, you're a man, just like I am a man. So we're all man, men. So God created male and female, created them in his own image and likeness. So when others say, look, you are come from the process of evolution, and your great-great-great-great-granddaddy was a monkey. That is absolute silliness, because God, you and the monkey are not the same. Have you ever seen a monkey association where monkeys gather together and form the monkeys union and things like that, where they form their own cities and set their own laws? And have you ever seen a bunch of monkeys creating airplanes where they're flying across the sky and say, goodbye world, I stay no longer with you? No, you do not hear about, except from Animal Farm, about pigs coming together and dominating society and setting rules and governments and things of that sort. It does not happen, because they were not created in the image of God. They do not have the ability to carry out the kind of incredible things that we are able to do it. Why are we able to do that? Because we are in the image of our Creator, and that's why we create. That's why we're creative. That's why we set laws. That's why we govern. That's why we set up families and neighborhoods and homes and all sort of incredible stuff, and cities and water systems, sewage systems, and all of that. That's why we set up colleges, high school, universities, elementary school, daycare, and different things like that. That's why we set up industries, high rise, and all of that, because we were created in the image of God. God created us all. And that happened some 6,000 or so years ago. And the Bible declares when God was finished, on day 7 he rested, not because he was tired, but as an example for us today. And it would do us well regardless. There is no real proudness of working 24/7, 7 days a week, and just say, I never stop. There is nothing to that. There is no real benefit. God rested on the 7th day, and we also need to find it. Find it in us to rest, because we are not indestructible either. But after God created this marvelous garden, placed Adam and Eve in the garden, somewhere along the line, the enemy came in the form of a serpent. God ended up setting the rules. The rules were simple. Have dominion, be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth, be the governing system as far as the earth. It is yours. He has given, the Bible declared, to man. But Adam, who was given the rules as it relates to the earth itself, decided to go contrary to that rule. What was the rule? The rule was this: do not touch that fruit. It's not an apple, or at least I don't think. Many Americans say, it's an apple. It's not an apple. He said, do not touch that fruit. And so he went, or she went, and then afterwards he was standing beside her and she passed it to him and he decided. And ever since then, we went into the next sea, from creation to corruption. Sin came into the earth, from perfection to imperfection. Adam and Eve were sinless beings who were placed there before God. But the day that they decided to disobey the voice of God, sin was introduced into the world. And sociologists, psychologists, different therapists today would say that sin is almost like a figment of our imagination. We can override sin. All we need is appropriate education to get us out of sin. But how many of you know today that some of the most horrendous sins are committed by very educated people? Very educated people who have the capacity when it comes to creativity, education, and all kinds of stuff to carry out horrendous acts against humanity. Education is not the solution to sin. Otherwise, today, our universities would be the most religious and outstanding place on the face of planet Earth. But when we go into our universities today, we deal with every kind of chaotic ideologies and outrageous behavior and thinking today, because education can never overcome the issue of sin. Some people say sin was not there. My child learned to sin. No. Your child was born in sin and shapen in iniquity. Yes. When you look at that sweet, sweet little boy there, Jojo Camise, he was not born. You did not take him there and train him not that he's not a sweetheart and just like the most lovable child that you could ever find, that little cushy top hair boy there. But at the same time, you did not take them and bring them to some sort of association and say, now I'm going to teach you the ways of life and you are going to adopt certain kinds of behavior. No, they learn it all by themselves. As a matter of fact, a child can display anger that would cause an adult to blush. Did you know that? You know that if an adult should behave the way a child behave and express the level of anger and all of that a child should do, having the full strength and the muscles of an adult, you would be dead. Because there were some times your child would behave in a manner that if somehow that child had the appropriate tool or the appropriate strength, you would be gone. And guess what? You're called mama. Now, can you imagine what would happen to people who would be called neighbor and enemies? You didn't teach them that. It just came as an automatic consequence of being born into this world. Where did this mysterious, force that leads us into sin? Paul describes it like that: when I desire to do good, all of a sudden there is this voice for evil that would come upon me. He said, so the good that I would and want to do, I cannot somehow seem to do it because there is another force that's pulling me here, and I'm trying to pull myself back, but then realize that I am a total victim to this way of living. Paul said, "O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death?" Somehow, I just can't seem to overcome it. And we have to realize that when when corruption came on creation, a force of darkness came over humanity, and it's the explanation of wars. It's the explanation of rumors of war. It's the explanation for abortion. It's the explanation for euthanasia. It's the explanation for civil disobedience. It's the explanation for murder, for lying. It's the explanation for gossip and envy and corruption of every form, because when Jesus Christ, or when Adam and Eve decided to go the opposite way, it opened the floodgates for wrong. Corruption came on the face of the earth. That corruption then led to confusion, or not confusion, but more like a catastrophe. Because after the corruption, or may I just interject there, in the midst of all of this corruption, God gave hope immediately. God said in Genesis 3, verse 15, he said, "And you, woman, the architect of this, you're going to bring forth a seed." He's called the seed of the woman. As a matter of fact, he's not the seed of a man, but the seed of a woman. Joseph had no dealing with the birth of this child, but it was the child of Mary who was conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit. He said the seed of the woman will bring forth an answer, a solution that can turn the tide. And that was referring to none other than Jesus Christ. Catastrophe came because the Bible described the state of man, that it got so bad. This was in the Genesis of time. It got so bad that maybe some 4,500 or so years ago, God decided to visit planet Earth again, and he said, "I will destroy man whom I have created." Because the Bible, the narrator, the writer said, the intent or the behavior and the practice of humanity was just evil continually. Just consistent evil. And so God told Noah, go forward. Noah, build an ark of gopher wood. And Noah built that ark. We don't know how long it took, but scholars have estimated probably somewhere in that 80, 90, minimum of maybe 75 to as high as probably in the 90s, most of them. He was given the commission at age 480, and somebody's laughing now, really, that used to happen. And the ark was completed at age 600, so it's 120 years. And we're not going to deal with the longness of how people were able to live so long. If you're so curious, come on a Wednesday night and we address different issues. But here's the thing. Noah built that ark, and then the Bible declared that the earth opened up. God sent Noah in to the ark. And then the Bible said the earth opened up and water gushed from below. And then rain started falling upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, along with the water from the earth, until the ark was taken up. And it continued there until the level of water increased, until it was some 15 cubit or 22 plus feet above the highest hill on the face of the earth. Ladies and gentlemen, scientists have declared that the craters and all these things that you see on Mars today, that these things were formed by water. Do you know how much water people discovered on Mars? Not even a teaspoon. But the craters and all the damages that you're looking at was the result of the destructive force of water. But here's the thing. The same scientists who would say that would mock the idea that there was a global flood. I don't know about you. When I walk and move around the earth, I'm from an island, the island of Jamaica, not too big, 149 miles in terms of its longest point, something like either 49 or 59 miles in terms of its widest point. But here's the thing. Not very big, just 4,000 and a little bit square miles. But when I come out of the mid part of the country where I was born and come down to the lake, I drive from one end to the other, and all I can see, guess what? Water. As far as the eyes can see. And then I was told that you can actually take that water and make your way to the United States or Canada or Hawaii or China or anywhere across the globe. You just have to just circle and pass through some point and you can go anywhere. Because this water actually links every single continent on the face of the earth. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Is that for real? Yes. The earth has that much water. Then I realized, as you know, we would go beaching a little bit and you would walk a little bit and then ankle, and then after that, knee, and after knee, waist, and after waist, a little above waist. And this is usually where I stop because I'm not a professional. And then after that, I dabble a little bit and then I come back. But then they say, you see that little section over there? If you had gone another 50 or 80 feet more, there is a drop there of some 600. I'm like, are you serious? Yeah, like 600. You just drop down. And I'm like, 600? That's like taller than my house. But here is the thing. That's nothing. Because the average depth of the ocean is several miles deep. That's the average depth. There are sections that people have discovered that would go on for about 15 kilometers in terms of depth so far. We probably don't even know where the deepest part is, but the bottom line is that this entire big planet that we have today is covered by water to miles upon miles deep. And our scientists said a global flood didn't take place on Earth, but guess what? A global flood took place on Mars, where there is no water. Is there anything wrong with our thinking here? The Bible said a flood came, and you say, where is all that water that was on earth? It's still here. That's what I'm talking about. He said, but. The Bible said the terrain of the earth. The Bible said the mountains were pushed up because of all the different activity that transpired. And so as the tectonic plate starts to move and they push against each other during all the volcanic activity and the eruption, and you'll see the tearing of the earth right around. It pushes the land, and as the land starts to push, you get some hills that are higher than they were back in the time of Noah. And here is the thing. That's why you have perfect bending when it comes to all these things. All these multiple layers, they all bend in the same direction because there was really a global flood. That's why when you go there and you climb up on Mount Everest and you start to go up there, Mount Everest is some 28,000 feet high, or somewhere there 29,000 feet high. But as you climb to the top and start to make your way up these mountains, you start to see all kinds of sea creatures, fish, all kinds of things, even things that would be at the very bottom of the ocean. How did they get up there? It was not a fish family vacation when they said, now little fishy, let's get together. We are going up on the earth for vacation. No, it was not a family vacation. It was simply a case that as the earth was pushed up and all the activity that would transpire, that would cause these mountains to come up. That's how these creatures that were dead came up with it, and maybe some even alive. And that's why you're able to find them billions of dead things buried in rock layers all over the earth, at the highest level and at the lowest level, in remote fields, anywhere across planet Earth, there are things that will confirm that there was a catastrophe happened about 4,500 years ago. And God said to Noah, recommission him. Let's get back to the plan. Sin was prevalent. Even Noah was accused of outrageous behavior because of the infection of sin. As people continue to move along, they move and try to create a new form of rebellion against God in a place, in a Shinar, at a place called Babel. And as they were there, God decided to come on the scene and create the next sea, confusion. Gave them multiple languages. That's why we have thousands of languages today, but only 20 mother languages, because somewhere along the line, God created languages and other languages came off those languages. But if you take all languages and move back to that, somehow none of them exceed 5,000 years. Why? Because the global flood was about 5,000 or less than 5,000 years ago. That's why the oldest tree is 4,000 plus. That's why the oldest language is under 5,000. When it comes to the oldest culture, that is credible, not what people try to invent. Same thing around that time. And so all of those things affirm the legitimacy of world history. Confusion came along. People were scattered across the globe, and that's why today when we go to different places, we need some kind of interpreter for us to communicate. But we need that. That came from confusion. But all of that was, there was always this whole thing pointing to the answer to all of it. There was this thing where everybody there started to look ahead and they started to have sacrifices. Moses would look ahead and say, I see it, I see an answer. Someone like me in terms of certain roles. David see him and said, yes, it's from my offspring. Abraham, even before that, said, yes, it's someone that's going to come from my gene pool also. Isaiah looked and he saw it and he said, yes, I see it also. I see
it. Now, wasn't that a wonderful message? I know that every time I hear the word of God, it gives me life and power and strength. And I know that it will do the same for you in your life. I thank you for joining us, and you can always find more information about us on our website, our Facebook page, or our YouTube channel. We'll see you again at The Rock.